All right, so beautiful day here in San Francisco. There's no wind, which is really unusual. I'm thinking of painting the scene behind me. All right, so I'm thinking of doing a zoomed in view to feature Alcatraz more prominently. I'd also like to include the tree that is casting a shadow onto the street, and I'll probably crop out most of the car to the right. I'm painting on a 24 by 24 inch stretched linen canvas, and I'm just sketching in burnt sienna, mapping out the big shapes here, trying to get an arrangement that I'm happy with. Even though I'm focusing on the big shapes, I am including some details like this street lamp and a few signs, because I think they help create a sense of depth. All right, so at this point I walk back about 8 or 10 feet, trying to be careful of traffic, but just looking at the overall composition, and I think this will work. So I'm going to start scrubbing in some darks. All right, I've got a mixture of ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, and a bit of burnt sienna, kind of a purplish mixture here. And I feel like I'm going to lose the shadows on the street first. So I'm going to start by blocking in the shadow shapes. This is a stretched linen canvas, which, to be honest, I find it sort of challenging to paint on these because they're kind of slick and not particularly absorbent, but I'm kind of getting them figured out. So we'll see how it goes. The canvas is in full light, but I've kind of gotten used to painting with the canvas and the palette in full light. It does take a little practice because the colors will appear lighter and more saturated when in direct light. So oftentimes you'll get a painting home and it will be too dark and too desaturated. Oh, thank you. All right, there's an apartment building here. I'm going to sketch out a few lines for the tops of the windows, and then there's like a shadow that comes down like this. And I want to just suggest this building. I don't want it to be too detailed. There's an overhang with a shadow coming down like that. Then we've got a stop sign here. There's two cars here. There's a truck and a car. I'm going to put this car in the shadows because I don't want a bright spot here to draw the eye. So this is something I'll do often, is, you know, I think about where the brightest spots in the painting are. All right, I've got a dark green mixture here for the tree that's overhanging the street. I kind of like this idea of having this tree in the foreground and having it cast a shadow onto the street. This is an idea I've experimented with watercolor, but not so much in oils. And it was definitely inspired by looking at Japanese woodblock prints. They'll often have something like a tree overhanging in the foreground. All right, so adding some greenery to Alcatraz here. I also need to put in the shadows on the buildings because I'm losing them. I'm adding a car on this hill here, and I think I'll have headlights on the car as well. And then this.
Yeah, very good.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Adding a tree there. All right, for this distant mountain, I'm using a desaturated purple. And keeping the mix really thin too, because I will be adjusting. I'll be adjusting these colors. I just want to get it all mapped out and see where I stand, and then I can start making adjustments. There's some more greenery up here. One of the challenges I face when painting a larger canvas like this is that it's kind of hard to hold the camera and paint, you know, to be able to show you what I'm doing, because I've got to hold the camera way back. So long handle on the brush is definitely helpful. Okay. I want to be sure to have some interesting sky holes in the tree. All right, going with a mixture of ultramarine blue and burnt sienna for the trunk of the tree. Add a few branches. And this tree, I believe, is a sycamore tree. Switching over to a smaller brush for some of these smaller branches. It's always nice to have a few branches going through the sky holes. All right, I've got a blue-green mixture here I made using ultramarine blue, phthalo blue, a little bit of burnt sienna, and a little bit of cadmium yellow medium. And the water is actually fairly dark in value, although I think I've got it a bit too dark here. But again, I'll be adjusting the colors and values once I get the whole painting scrubbed in. I want to be sure that I get a nice contrast between the shadow portions of the painting and the light portions. These city paintings are definitely a challenge, but it's a challenge that I enjoy. At this point, I'm thinning the paint with liquid so that I can cover the canvas really quickly. It thins the paint, but it also adds durability to the paint. And I'm using a number 8 natural bristle flat. I'm going to be switching over to a different brush, but I'm not actually sure what I'm going to use after this. Probably a number 6 natural bristle flat, or at least try that and see if it works. Most of the time what I'm doing out here is just sort of experimenting. If something doesn't work, I'll try something else. I think that's the key, is you don't want to get discouraged and quit. That's what I used to do when I started out. When something wasn't working out, I'd kind of lose faith in myself that I could actually figure it out. And I had to make a conscious effort to actually not just quit. Sometimes I wouldn't quit. I'd just tell myself that I was going to work on it later when I got home, and then I wouldn't. All right, for the street, I'm going with a warm gray. Colors also appear to be warmer when they're in direct light, so I probably will be turning the canvas or even walking the easel over to a shady part of the street in order to judge the final colors. All right, for the sky, I've got a mixture of ultramarine blue, phthalo blue, and titanium white. Phthalo blue is one of my essential colors because I use it in almost every sky mixture I make. It's also really useful in making blue greens. it can be kind of difficult to control phthalo blue. So if you're doing smaller paintings where you're mixing up smaller bits of paint or piles of paint, it can be overwhelming. But if you are painting larger paintings, like say 16 by 20 or even like 12 by 16, I think that if you're careful, you won't get overwhelmed by it. It's just such a useful color. Okay, so adding some of the warm tones to ALCATRAZ here. And I want to make sure that I'm keeping these shapes sort of irregular and spontaneous. I will be adjusting the colors and values of these shapes as well. There's some more over here. And using a warm gray for this roof here. And I do think I want to leave some bits of the sketch as usual. It's nice to have those bits of orange. This is probably too saturated, but just adding the light bits on the buildings on ALCATRAZ. And using a number 4 synthetic flat here, which is kind of too big for the job, but I don't mind that. I can use the background to kind of carve out the buildings. All right, I've got another warm gray mixture here for the light portion of this building. This building actually has sort of a greenish tone to it, but I do not want to have it be green. I'd rather have it be some kind of warm color. Okay, so that pretty much completes the scrub in right there. So next step will be to start adding thicker paint. All right, so I was painting over here. I had to move because I was getting too much reflection off of the canvas. These linen canvases are very shiny, so I wasn't able to find shade over there. So I found shade here, but a carpet cleaner pulled up and the pumps are non-stop. One last bit of narration here. So I'm just going over some of these shapes with more accurate colors, and I'm using a number 8 natural bristle flat here. And I have put down some lines on the street. All right, so here's what I finished up with. This painting took about 2.5 hours to complete. It was finished on site, although I'm considering a few touch-ups. I think I might add some warm reflections at the base of the island here. The island seems to be sort of levitating, and it doesn't appear to be set in the water. So I feel like a few warm reflections in the water will set the island in the water. I'm also thinking of adding some dark details to this water tower here, just so that it matches the building. Other than that, I'm going to leave it the way it is. I like to leave my plein air paintings loose and spontaneous and not overworked. So I think that'll be it for touch-ups. The tree hanging over the street, that idea was inspired by Japanese woodblock prints. But when I got the painting home, I realized it reminded me of a Maxfield Parrish painting. And I think maybe Maxfield Parrish was also inspired by Japanese woodblock prints. I really do like this idea of having the tree overhanging. It sort of frames the composition. And so that's an idea I think I'll be experimenting with more in the future. All right, so hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you'd like to see some extra videos and help support the channel, there's a Patreon link down below. It's a Patreon support that helps keep me making these videos, and it's much appreciated. So check it out. Other than that, stay creative. I'll see you guys in the next video.